Good morning, Anne, or good afternoon, Anne. How's your day going?
Good, Manny. I'm here for my mastermind. I'm ready.
Sorry, I had a little conflict with meetings this morning for work, and I was like, we can't miss this. I promised them.
Cool.
Next week, we're going to have Barb Spitzak with Epic Lending come in and go over lots of new financing programs and new ways to look at the mortgage insurance premium for FHA. And so I'm really excited about next week as well.
Awesome. Is she the new rep for our office?
Yes, she is one of them. We actually have two. We have Chuck or Barb, or we can say and. So whoever makes you happy with me, happy with you.
Awesome. Thanks.
But I really like how she shares.
Cool.
Well, it's 2:58, so we have 2 minutes. Bonnie, is that Bonnie Sumita? She's not unmuting. All right, here's the thing on when it comes to Zoom and me. If you need to ask a question, if I'm going too fast, if no one's in front of me to watch faces, so you just have to shout out and be like, Mandy, wait up, I'm lost, or I'm not on the same page, or whatever it is. So just feel free to speak up today. I'm not sure how many people will be joining us in the next few minutes. Also, we are sharing this on our Zoom page, our Facebook page on our private group. But again, you shouldn't be embarrassed about any questions. You have no issues. If you have a question, that means somebody else has a question.
Got it.
It's just like a new build contract, right, Anne? You sit there and they go, and you go,
Cool.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so I can figure out what's happening in the world around me.
Perfect.
So, Anne, can you see the ER agreement in front of you?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Look at us. We're already rocking it. Okay. And then I just need to have my little participant. Hey, Brian, I saw you just joined us. Probably can't hear me yet. Well, guys, I don't know about you, but I know about me, and I promised you a 3 o'clock mastermind today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Last week on Monday, we stopped off on section 1 of page 1 of the ER agreement. As you can see, there's just so much information in here to go over. None of these forms really should be taken lightly in the aspect of not knowing what they say. So you always want to go through, read things 10, 20 times. And one of the biggest pieces that we didn't bring up last week before we get into what I promised you today that I wanted to kind of touch base with you on is line 26. Line 26 right here, it says modification. This is taken into, people blow it off. That's the way to say it all the time. They think, hey, I have the listing, I'm doing right by my seller. And truly, are you if you don't have it in writing? Are you truly understanding what everybody's intention is if you don't have it in writing? So the one thing I would ask from you from now on is to just dive deep into the sections of the listing agreement, because they're there to protect you. And remember that you shouldn't be making any changes with verbal communications. You should only be making changes when they're in writing. And our ER agreement goes a little further than sometimes I go, which is and signed by the owner and the broker. See, everything we do in the listing side is between the seller and us. Contract negotiations is separate from modifications and price point. It's separate from extending out the expiration date of your listing. So we really want to make sure that we're honing in deep and not taking things for granted and not thinking it's okay to just change it because I had a conversation. No, let's put it in writing. Let's protect ourselves as professionals and let's continue to move forward. Any questions on that? Does anybody have any questions? And you're allowed to unmute. You're even allowed to share your face. Anybody have any questions from last week or anything you wanted to go back over that we discussed last week? This is a really fast committee meeting. Hearing none, we're moving forward. So what I promised you that we'd go over today is the compensation section of the contract. I also promised you that we would go over net sheets and how to do them yourselves because we focused a lot on price points on page 1. So where I'd like to start with you is price pointing and net sheets. And then we'll move into compensation discussions because compensation can actually take the entirety of the hour. And I want to make sure that I keep your time focused on what you wanted. So everybody's okay and can see my screen. I'm going to go over to MLS. So when you're logged into ARMLS, and I'll just delete that address, that's helping somebody. What you want to be sure to know is how to go to all of your tools, right? See, a lot of us depend greatly on our affiliated partners, but I want you to depend on yourself. I want to make sure that you understand that even if an app is not working, that you can make a cost estimate sheet for a seller. And this is one of the most important pieces to go off when negotiating with a seller is their bottom line. See, if we stick to like, yeah, I listed it at 350, they're stuck in their head at 350 minus the payoff equals how much they'll make. And we both know that's not true. So we want to make sure we lay it all out for them. So that's what I'm going to teach you. And Lucinda, thank you for joining us. And like I told everybody else, you're welcome to unmute and interrupt me anytime. So let me make sure my speaker's on. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, so no one's unmuted. So in MLS, you're going to click on menu. Under menu, you're going to go to your daily functions and you're going to go to calculators. And like I said before, this is being recorded. In calculators, you can make an amortization schedule. Where that comes in handy is really wraps, carrybacks, people wanting to understand with balloon payments where they're going to be. So this is a really cool tool you have at your fingertips, but it's not used on a regular basis. Where the closing cost estimator should really be being utilized on a regular basis. So I'm going to click this and then I'm going to click Run Report. And again, I will not do this for a buyer. I only do this when I'm representing the seller or going to a listing presentation. You can see that I've made a lot over the years. I have a habit of not deleting anything. And then I go to new. And in here is where I'm going to work. There's a few points I want to make sure to bring out to you. Number 1, I always have print condensed version selected. I never have print full version selected because then it's what if, when would, and it's just too much. It's like 5 hours of conversations on things that do not apply to them. So always print condensed version will only print out what is applicable to that transaction. You always have to name it. So I'm going to just name this one Mastermind Class. I typically name it my client's name and the address just so I can easily find it. Because if you only do the client's name and you're in it for the years to come, what's hard is if you sold for them multiple properties, right? I always take off display buyer's summary when I'm looking at the seller's side only. So I only want display seller's summary. That doesn't mean I wouldn't put a buyer's name in here if I had an offer in front of me or name it offer 1. So let's just say this is listing appointment. So we don't have a buyer yet, right? And our seller, we're gathering from tax records. Oh, look, Chris is here. How exciting. Add him too. And the seller's name is going to be whoever the sellers are. So we could say Sam and Michael, can't type today, Jones, for instance. Then the property address is always extremely important to get correct, or you will look like a fool at your listing appointment. So please be sure to check it with the tax records. Hi, Chris. I know you just joined us. We're doing a net sheet, which is located in your MLS under menu.
Okay.
And under calculators. It's nice to have you here.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the contract sales price, we're going to just estimate at whatever we're telling somebody that they should be at for a list price. So let's say we told our seller they should be at $625 for a list price, okay? And then the key is, in my opinion, to hit the tab key. When you hit tab, to me, it helps the whole sheet calculate because it's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, but prettier. The contract date. So if I was taking this listing, let's say this Friday, and I was getting photos on the 24th of March, I'm going to say, okay, let's say I have a contract by mid-April. So I'm going to say, all right, we're going to go under contract for an example, mid-April. And then I'm going to go out to about May 19th for a closing date. And these are just estimates, but it helps the seller visualize what costs are going to be. Then, like always, I am going to go, let's just use a different tab, My Monsoon. I'm going to go to tax records and pull the tax information. So you can do this through MLS as well, but if you go to mymonsoon.com, that is a shortcut to all of your tax bases. So mymonsoon.com. I actually have it as a shortcut on my phone because when you invite me to your house for a barbecue, and thank you all in advance for that, I can't always remember your address, but if you own your house and I go to tax records, I can find your address. So that's what I do it for. But I go down here and I'm going to see, right, that the taxes this is going to be based on is 2022 because things are paid in arrears, and that's 2163. So then I'm going to go back to my net sheet. And I'm going to type 2163 and hit tab. I'm going to ask if they know of any special assessments or CFDs, which is community facility districts, which are known as special taxing districts. I'm going to tell you basically your tax records here. We have asked MLS to have some indication if there's a possibility. I haven't seen it yet, but just go over them a little thoroughly, make sure that there's nothing weird that you haven't seen before. And really down here that there's nothing that says like CFD or special taxing district. And so I don't see anything here. So I'm going to continue to move forward. It then asks me my HOA fee, right? Because that is important. And so this HOA is $39 a month. A few ways to estimate that is to go back in MLS and see what other people have marked. This isn't exact. This is as good as you can get. If they tell you on the phone, that's awesome. But sometimes you might forget to ask that beautiful question. So that's how you complete so far this part. Anybody have a question on this part so far? Okay, you guys are doing fantastic. Now on the phone, I know Lucinda would ask, because I saw her with us today as well. She would say, could you please share with me how much you might owe on your property so I can give you a good expectation of what to expect when you sell it? And the seller would say, oh yeah, I would love to know my real math, right? And they're going to say, I owe about $425 on the house. Okay, great. So I'm going to put $425 in. I could ask them their interest rate, but just to be honest with you guys, people get so weird on this question. I always bump it anyway. So an interest rate is not going to be above 10, but let's say they were excited and they got it at 3%. That's awesome. I'm going to calculate at 5. They tell me 5, I'm going to calculate at 7 because at the end of the day, it's only like a $50 payoff difference. And I really don't like underquoting people. So for today's purposes, we're going to pretend they said 6, and I'm just going to calculate it at 8. Or if I didn't ask, I'm going to calculate it at 8%. And I'm going to hit tab. And I'm going to show you how I discuss that here shortly. Then it's going to bring you to these sections of tons and tons of overwhelming numbers that most likely do not apply to your transactions. So unless you're having like a septic tank, it would be a great point to add a line item here and say on-site wastewater treatment facility pump and certify and put, $1,000 or $800 or whatever the case is. But in this case, we don't have that. So we're going to go all the way down to where it shows settlement charges. On the settlement charges, one of the things that we're going to be discussing today is professional service fees, which is another fancy way of saying commissions. I personally break out the 6% I charge into 2-3% sections. And sometimes I charge 5% depending, which we'll discuss today. And then that would be broken down into 2.5 sections. So here I'm going to put 3%. And I'm going to hit tab. Before I discuss any other topic, what I want to show you that I do is I go all the way to the bottom of the page. And I say buyer broker compensation. And I put $18,750. The words I don't use is commission. It's a professional service fee. It's my service fee, and it's compensation for cooperation that I'm offering the buyer's agent, but Truly Realty One Group has earned the entire 6%. It's just another way of speaking. So that's how I add that information in there. I then go down, because we're not doing buyer's costs, until I get these little numbers in the boxes. These little numbers in the boxes are title fees. So as long as it's not a cash buyer, which don't bank on a cash buyer, so please add these fees in, we're always going to have title and escrow fees. What I do as a rule of thumb is I round up to the next 100 and add 100. So this one would be 2,600. So it's not really true rounding. And this one would be 800. I then always double the recording fees, because it's amazing how many settlement statements I've read, and there's some miscellaneous $25 fee or $50 fee, and I'm like, what is this? And they can't explain it, but it's there, and now my client's short, so I always make that $100. These are considered kind of like mid of the range, they kind of pull those just as a thought process for you, but they're never truly accurate. So that's why I always round up. I never round these down. I never figure out the discounts, because I'm giving a estimated charge. I'm not going to give the entire, I'm not going to break it down specific. That comes with the HUD 1 statement, which is your settlement statement, which is now just called the settlement statement. Then I go to additional settlement statement fees, right? The additional charges. Now, a home warranty is a great idea for a seller to pay for that first year, because it does reduce the risk. And say I put that here of $650. Now, what I don't like is they call this an HOA transfer fee here. HOA transfer fees are negotiable between buyer and seller. What fee must a seller pay? This is where you unmute and tell me what fee is not negotiable and a seller must pay it in an HOA.
The disclosure fee.
I knew you were going to do it, Ann. I love you. And what's the maximum amount for that?
I don't know.
$400 per association. So if it has 2 associations, it's $800. You have your master, your secondary, your yada yada association. So here, I'm always going to figure out how many associations and put that there. Now, you have to keep in mind, if this is an active adult community, they probably have something called capital improvement fees, which is fully negotiable. So these are things you want to start thinking about. Also, in today's marketplace, it's not uncommon for a buyer to negotiate repair costs in lieu of repairs, right? So I might add a settlement charge based on the area and to say repair cost, knowing it's $625, I'm going to say, at least 0.5%. So I'm going to say $3,000. Let's just give ourselves a little pocket of money for that. If you ever follow Dave Ramsey, who speaks about financial peace, right? He talks about this concept of envelopes, and in your envelope is your money to spend in that category. So basically, we're setting up some envelopes here for the seller's mindset. We then go and we hit this magical button called save. The reason we have to save it is anything we've typed into it, unless we save it, will not appear when we click PDF. And the PDF point is the most important part, because this is what's going to show our client how much money they're going to make. So I'm going to make this bigger for you because it's really little. So on here, it shows that I did a payoff $425 with an 8% interest. So they're already going to go, oh no, it's only 5. I go, great. That we can add like $50 back on the top. That's awesome. And because it's showing me that my interest on loan number 1, right? My payoff, because remember, a payoff's not just what you owe, it's also the interest you've accrued. It shows me my taxes, and it shows the estimated cash to seller is $152,438. I would like to point out to you, this does not always look red or negative if it's a negative number. It says from instead of to. So if you have someone you're working on that has really tight margins, really read this form before discussing it with them. You might be like, oh my gosh, I thought I'd make them 0. And look how much money I made them. No, that might be how much money they're coming in with. And that could be a problem. So the key is the sales price minus the estimated settlement charges. That $45,000 is what your job is to justify, right? Because just to let you know, you're the majority of it. You're about $3,700 of it between your professional service fee and the buyer broker compensation. And then we have our miscellaneous items as well, which equals that $45,000 amount, which nets them just over $152,000. Which at this point I'm saying, well, does 150,000 give you enough money to do with what your goals are after you sell your property? And hopefully they say yes. I would say yes. Yes, great. Like, let's move forward. Do you have any questions on this point? And this really helps you break the money down. And this is what I would redo this every single time I obtain an offer, because I'm never going to negotiate based on what they're offering here. I'm going to negotiate always on what my seller's goal is here. Okay. Any questions so far? It's okay if you have questions. I embrace them. Okay. I need to get you back in the office. It's very quiet in my room. Okay. So with that being said, then you would save this, you would print it out, you would take it to your listing appointment. Now, I do know ROC Title has an app that can do this for you as well. Lenders have apps that can do these kinds of things for you as well. The thing is, I've never walked into a listing without this. And I have pulled up to a listing though and forgotten it. And that's not okay. So what I've done is I have used apps in the past and emailed myself this document and emailed it to my clients, but I prefer to have it printed, ready to go. I wish we were all perfect and we were all able to make that happen all the time, but sometimes things happen. So just always know what the end goal is to know your numbers and to know what you're negotiating for the seller. Okay, so that concludes using the closing cost estimator, which again was in MLS under menu, daily functions, and then under calculators, and it was the closing cost estimator. Now, I will tell you one other thing is if I click run report here, it's going to pull all these up, and I need to go down to M to find the one we just did. Mastermind class. I have my original one, which will be my listing one. And then every time again, offer, I'm going to make ones that say offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, and I'm going to do it from scratch. And the reason is it is a data entry form. And I have had some issues in the past where tabbing through will shift numbers or the numbers won't populate based on the new information I gave below, because things are all based on that sales price or that property tax. So I like to be able to go back and know exactly what I discussed based on what offer or my listing presentation. So that is my advice on that. Okay. So yay, forms. Who's excited? Brian, you unmuted. Chris, you unmuted. You guys have something you want to share?
No, I'm just soaking it in like a sponge right now.
Love to see your face in, Chris. Oh, and tomorrow, guys, at 10 a.m. is the office meeting, just as a little reminder. Okay, so let's talk about compensation in the listing appointment. How many of you are really excited to walk in and tell somebody they have to pay you to do your job? Come on, I know someone's excited. No, none of us are excited. But we really like doing our job. So why not just bring up the conversation of what you charge and know how to set yourself up? So is anybody willing to tell me how they start this conversation? No one sharing. Okay, we'll do Mandy's way. But I just have to tell you all, friends, I'm not always right. So you'll take what I say and you're going to make it your own, or you're going to take what I say and you're like, I want to start it that way, and think about how you would so we can practice your way. But how I like to do it is, hey, I would love to work for you for free if the world did not rely on money to buy groceries. But unfortunately, I still have to buy groceries for my family. So I do want to go over what my professional service fees are. So I make everything a little light joke, or it depends on kind of the mood of the room. So my typical fee, and I always have this filled out just so you know, is 6% of the sales price. Out of that 6%, just to let you know, I do offer the cooperating broker, the one representing the buyer, 3% of that. Now, in the event no other realtors involved and the buyer comes along unrepresented, I will drop my 6% to 5% of the sales price, just so you can save a little money since I don't have to pay out that difference. And they say this, what? And so I said, can you, so I pull out the net sheet and we go back over the numbers of how it's divided out. And then when they go, man, you make a lot of money. Because you know what they say to me, man, you make a lot of money. And I say, oh, that's awesome. Can I explain to you how the money that looks like it's coming to me, how it works? And then I go over that 30% of that $18,000 we just discussed will end up going to the IRS for tax purposes. Another 20% equals my marketing fees, and it also equals my dues to be a realtor, as well as my fees to my company. So really, ultimately, I net around 50% of this amount, and that's what I take home prior to divvying it out to, you know, my livelihood. So for 30 to 90 days, I'll make X amount, which equals about $3,000 a month. Do you still think that sounds like a lot of money? Oh, I had no idea. No problem. I just want to make sure that we have a fully transparent conversation. Oh, who's going to talk? No one's talking yet. Okay. And so then I say, or say I walk in and it's a preferred client. And a preferred client to me is somebody I've worked for before, or someone who was referred out to by one of my favorite humans, right? So then I go in and I say, it's going to be 5% of the gross sales price. I start the conversation like this. Hey, my friend Lucy referred you, and who's also a friend of yours. And because of that, I've actually dropped my rate by 1% to help you out, because I know your goal is to profit as much as you can on your house so you can fulfill your goals that you explained to me moving to California. So with that being said, I've already reduced my rate for you. And in that rate, I'm also cooperating with the other side at 2.5%. So what this means for you is that you're going to get the same kind of professional service you would, even if I was charging you my full amount, and that Lucy knows her friend's taken care of, and we both can trust how we move forward. Do you have any questions about my compensation? And usually at this point, someone's asking for a discount, right? 5%, you know, I was watching the news the other day and this commercial popped up and they said, I'll list your house for 1%. Will you do that? Will you meet that? Then what you have to do is you have to ask more questions. Well, what about that enticed you? Was it the money or the marketing program? And then they're going to sit there and they're going to think about it. And they're going to say, well, at the end of the day, it's just too much for me to pay. So what are you going to come down to? Well, I already told you I reduced my amount. I typically don't negotiate my amount any further. And the reason is I believe in quality over quantity. So let me ask you, do you want someone who just wants a lot of listings to have their name out there and not take care of you? Or do you want someone with constant communication that protects and promotes your interests? Because you get what you pay for. And I say that and I hold my breath and I wait. Because then they're thinking, and you have to be comfortable at this point with uncomfortable silence. And usually I get something like this back. I hear what you're saying, but this is where I'd be comfortable. Okay, this is how I can work this out for you, but I'm not reducing my fee. Because if I was that fast to reduce my compensation, ask yourself, how fast would I be to reduce your list price just to sell your home? And that one works every single time for me. So you need to decide though, what compensation amount you're going to give here. So you could say 6, you could say 5, you could list for 4 or 3, but just know that this is the whole enchilada. And out of that enchilada, you're giving a portion of that to the other side. So never put like 2.5 and 2.5 and think that equals 5% here, because that does not equal 5%. That equals you're making nothing. So this would be 5 or 6% here. All right, does anybody want to kind of come with me at a scenario, or can I challenge any of you to answer me? Okay, Anne, I'm gonna call you up because I know you know how to unmute.
Okay, I'm here, Mandy.
I love you. Thank you. Okay, and so I see that this is 5%, but I was talking to my girlfriend yesterday and she said she listed for 4%. So if you match her, I'll totally go with you. What would you say to me?
That's when I would go to my listing presentation with all the things that I offer, all the marketing points and all the things I offer at that percentage. And say, I would have a hard time believing that this other person would offer all these things for that professional fee.
I love how you didn't even say commission. You said professional fee. So maybe you would open it and say, what part of this would you like me to remove if you're asking me to reduce my compensation? Or my professional service fee?
Correct.
Cool. Okay, Brian, I know you're here and I know you know how to unmute because I saw you do it. So now you're at a listing and they're like, look, I'm happy to go with you, but if my next door neighbor, Joe, decides to buy my house, I don't want to pay that full amount if you don't have to market it or do anything. What are you willing to do for me if Joe decides to buy the house?
First off, can you hear me? I was having issues earlier.
Yeah, I can totally hear you now.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
That's an interesting scenario.
I know it's a lot to chew on, right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure on the spot. Sorry.
No, I love it. I love that you were even willing to say hi to me. So thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, so if Joe's willing to buy the house, what I'm willing to do is drop this to 2% of the sales price as long as no other agents involved. But please note, Joe only has a 14-day period to decide if he wants to put in an offer, because once I start marketing the property and I put myself out there and I put your home out there, then it's incurring me costs and we go right back to 5%, even if Joe's going to buy the house. So does that sound fair to you? We either put the hot stone under Joe's tailbone so he can get going on things, or we go down the path to get you the highest and the best offer. So it's completely up to you, but there is a time limit because as soon as I put my best foot forward to market your property, I need you to know that I have earned that compensation.
That's awesome. All I could think about was a few minutes ago, you were saying you wouldn't reduce your commission. So I'm just like, it can't be that answer, right?
Well, I'm not though, right? Because I'm not reducing it because I'm not going to
compensation, I should say.
I'm not going to put a sign in the front yard. I'm basically just going to represent the seller with an unrepresented buyer that they found. So I didn't even have to procure the buyer, right? So at that point, if Joe wants to buy it, I'll write in that Joe has until I start marketing the property. But once I start marketing that property, once I hire a professional photographer, it is over. And I'm back to 5%, right? Because so many people actually have someone they want to buy the house already. I'll give them an opportunity, but there's no way that I'm going to spend my own money and not be compensated what I'm worth. I hope that helps. Lucinda, yes, feel free to unmute, my friend.
Hey, how's it going? Question before, well, two things. One, you said 14 days. And before, Joe would have that much time to react. Is that normally what you do for when you want to post it? If they say, we put it on the market as soon as you can. Do you usually try to do 2 weeks so you can do the proper pre-sale and get all the information out, your postcards and all that? Or is there a set rate time?
No, I was just giving an example because people are always really excited to send it to a friend or a neighbor, sell it to a friend or a neighbor, and they're not really actually ever going to be qualified to buy the property 90% of the time. You have that 10% chance. So if I'm meeting with, I forgot the name of my seller today. I'll name her Sally now.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
If I'm meeting with Sally and Sally's like, look, I really want to sell it to Joe. Okay, well, let's give him, what time period do you want to give him? I'm thinking 14 days. And at that point, I'll order my photography and I'll start marketing the property. And then go over what clear cooperation looks like. But let's say they say, no, Joe has an opportunity to buy it, but I want to get on the market now. Okay, well, I'm not going to give any discount then because I am going to put my best foot forward to market your property properly? And the answer is every house has a different time on the market to go, right? Some houses they need to paint, some houses they need to prep for photos,
Right,
and some houses you walk into and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a dream come true. There's a
right.
few of those, right? And so that day of prepping, those days, that's just going to be fully on the seller and your discussion on what their home needs.
Okay. And the second question I had was, you were saying earlier when you were talking about your commission, that if you found the buyer and you did this solely on your own, that you would give a reduced rate of 5% or something. Now, I know if you had me and you were telling me that, I would say, can I get that in writing?
Yes, Lucinda, you can.
Where do you put that? Yeah, that's what I
Right.
wanted to know.
We're going to put that in additional terms.
Okay,
And it's going to say, in the event no other agent is involved outside of Mandy Neat in the transaction, the total compensation will be, let's just say 5% of the sales price. What is this known as?
I can't think.
But you're,
I see it in the MLS. It's there.
Variable commission.
That's it.
Variable
Yeah.
commission. I was on mute, but I said it.
you all knew it. I confused this whole room today because we're not in the room at 10 and I apologize for that, but thank you for coming this afternoon. Yeah, it's variable commission. So in MLS, it would be a Y next to VAR commission. And that means you can call and find out what that variance is. So if someone came unrepresented or the listing agent represented solely both buyer and seller, then the seller would make 1% more than if I come in with a buyer because I'm getting paid X amount, right? And they're charging X amount. So I need to structure my client's offer with the variance in mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, appreciate it.
Cool. Everybody else good on that?
Hey, Mandy,
Yes.
hi. The one thing
Melissa.
that I know, I'm sitting listening to you through the wall. The one thing that I did not hear anybody say is one of the things I do is show what the recent sales in the area have paid as co-brokes. So the recent comps that I'm going to be showing as comps anyway, all have a line that the seller can see on the bottom that shows what the co-brokes are.
Yeah, let's go ahead and look up some of those so we can know how to do that. So if I go here and I just go to, let's say, closed properties, for instance, and I put in Phoenix, I'm just doing this for example. If I can type in the right thing, that'd be nice, Phoenix. And I'm going to put in a zip code as soon as it lets me. And thank you, Lucinda, for having me write that down. I do have those habits of not writing things down. And I say I want to see things in the last 30 days. Just as just an example, because we have a lot going on here. And in the MLS Plano itself, this is, yeah, we'll go here. Say it was in Moon Valley. We go down here and we see that they were offering 2.5% and it was an owner agent situation. I go to this one and so this way they can see that maybe the area offers so much. So I'm not asking anything unreasonable, but this is my standard of practice. What you want to be really careful of saying, you don't want to say this is the standard of the area. This is what everybody's doing, right? This is my standard of practice, which seems to be common in the area, but it's not something that's not negotiable. But I want to kind of show you what's going on so you don't think I'm being unreasonable.
Well, and the reason it comes up is when they ask you to reduce your price or when somebody else has said, oh, I'll do this listing for 1%. Well, is that factoring in the buyer broker side, right? Because oftentimes when somebody advertises 1%, that is only their side. That is not the co-broke amount. And when you start actually talking to those people, they're like, yes, we'll do it for 1%, but then you need to pay the other side XYZ.
Right. Right. And so having those conversations, a a larger scale and showing people. And sometimes what I like to do is just take blank paper in my briefcase and draw things out for people so they can actually visualize it. It's not a bad idea. There's one agent that used to go around telling people that he took giant chocolate chip cookies to his listing presentations, and he would divide them into pieces based on marketing, IRS, his amount, his company's amount. And so by the time he split the pie in half or the cookie in half, and he only gets a sliver, and he goes, what other part would you like me to remove? And so he would show a visual. I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, giving someone a sugar high is definitely a plus for your listing presentation, possibly, but possibly not. Some guys, I've heard do it with pizza. Some people just take $3 bills and show people how things are split up. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of be creative and lay it out. But what I would like to say is just have real conversations and lay out what it means to hire you. Because by this point, we've already gone over, when I get back up to it, by this point, we've already gone over agency, right? Because our first discussion was on our value. We've already gone over marketing. We've toured their home. At this point, they're either in love with you or they're not. And it's natural to ask for a coupon. It's natural to ask for a discount. The best example I can give you is I could spend 3 hours at Kohl's shopping with my teenagers, and I get to that register and they don't give me one of those little special things. I'm walking out with nothing because I'm not going to pay full price at Kohl's, right? Like, but I do expect to pay full price when I go to Kierland, and I think you're all a Kierland person, but it's not uncommon for someone to say, hey, where's my coupon? I shop for milk at Fry's, and I'm always looking at the sales. So just explaining why it's important for them to pay for the quality they want, and ask them, what about me do you want me to shift in my communications or my marketing that would change you from wanting me to actually receive that full compensation? Melissa, did you have something else to add? That was fantastic.
Nope, just wanted to add that because I didn't hear that conversation in there. And it makes a big difference when you start looking at those co-brokes and they're ranging from 2 to 3%, or maybe they're all 2.5% and 3%, and they say, well, we only want to offer 2%. And it's like, that's their choice.
And then in those discussions and getting through that ER agreement, this website competition.realtor also is consumer facing to talk to them about how we don't have set commissions, how everything is negotiable. And here's 184 things your realtor does for you. And Caroline, I know you already have some of this done with Sammy. You guys do a lot of this already, but consumer access, just understanding that, look, at the end of the day, rates are rates, and I have my own standard of practice. Now, if you ever need to, on your ER agreement, blame this on me. They don't know my name. You say, oh, well, my broker requires. We can set commission rates for brokerage. We don't. We can. We have that ability in-house. You can always say something like, you know, I really appreciate you asking, but unfortunately, I don't have the authority to change the amount here. So I'm going to have to check with my broker to see if it's acceptable. I'm going to tell you 110% of the time, I'm going to back whatever you choose to do. It's your business. But I've used that many times too when I was first starting with, let me check with my broker to see if that's acceptable. Does that make sense?
What was that site for on realtor.com?
Competition.realtor. Which is not what it forwards to, but it's competition.realtor, and then that forwards directly here. You could also use this site in really great ways to put it on your social media to get more people talking to you. Do you guys mind if I share a tool I learned today from Realty One Group? So all of you have a Realty One Group website at your fingertips. Now, if it's your name.myrealtyonegroup.com, and you've probably been there or forwarded your domain there. Now, if you put it in and you put /my-home-value, we have something else that's awesome for sellers. And what you do, it's an AVM, an automated value model, right on your own website. So I'm going to put in my home address.
Great.
Actually, I'm going to put in my other address because I kind of want to know what this is. And I'm going to say get estimate. And you can have this up at your listings too, and it's gonna bring up the property, it's gonna bring up Zillow's range, Home Junction's range, and IDC's range, and these are all AVMs that are commonly used. I'm going to then be able to go down and the client can sign up for more information. They can see the sales history on their house. They can see how the value has shifted over time in their area. They can see what they're being compared to. For computer purposes, automated value models, which is all about algorithms. They can see what's pending, what's sold, what's off market. And then at the end of the day, it's just like a really fun place to be like right on your own site. You can show them what's going on and you all have access to this. So when you go into that listing presentation, talk to them, pull up from your site, show them that you're the source and you have all the same information, if not more than other websites offer. And we have real information from the Arizona Regional Multiple Listing Service that gives them accurate data with the tax records. So this was, again, your web domain. So mine's mandyneat.myrealtyoneGroup.com/my-home-value. I think it's cool. What do you think?
I think it's really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know what else you guys could do is if you just take this site here, the one I'm trying to show you right here, and you make it into a QR code, you could use that on a postcard to go, hey, you want to know what your value ideas are? Check out my site, put in your address, and I'll give you more information.
Hey, Mandy.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, that is a very neat tool. Except on my website, it just brings up a blank page once you put on an address and hit run. Who would we talk to about that?
You and technology are not friends, are you?
Apparently.
All right, so I'm on your page, Brian.
Hmm.
And I'm going to put in my address.
Yeah, mine just when
Yeah,
I'm doing
I
it.
think you're, oh no, there it is. Look me up.
Mine's just blank white page.
Yeah, no, it's working on my end. Maybe go into a different browser and try it. Are you in Google Chrome?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, we'd email help desk, but I'm on your site and it worked.
As long as it works for everyone else. That's probably the most important thing. So that's good. Good to know it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, but we'll play with it later when you bring your computer in to see what's up. Because cookies can block things too, or whatever blocks things. Cookies, not cookies.
Brownie.
Security stuff. There's too many terms for me. Anybody else have anything they want to go over today? All right, well, not hearing none, I just want to thank you all for your time. Again, next week, it will be in office at 10 a.m. Barb is going to come and talk to you about financing and Barb Spitzak and different concepts and different programs, because where this is all great, we really, to promote and protect our sellers, we need to understand mortgages. We need to understand what questions to be asking and how to protect our sellers to pick the best buyer possible, even though there's no guarantees of closing, right? But the only way to protect a seller is to understand what you can be asking a borrower or a borrower's lender and what you should be looking out for. All right, well, the chat box said, hi. Yeah, great job, guys. The chat box was working. You're all happy, and I look forward to seeing you all in the office tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Thank you,
See you
Mandy.
tomorrow.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thanks.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful.
Good information.
It
Awesome.
was.
Great. All right, see you guys again tomorrow. Bye.